We have never looked back. So, a very, very special thanks to you for that, sir. Uh, we have a session, just now, but prior to that, sir, we would like to have your views, and maybe the other panelists can also join you on the stage at the same time. That will be nice. And I will now request Nicole to please kindly invite the panelists and Shri Hansraj Verma ji on the dais, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, kindly take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to welcome our guest of honor, Thiru Hansraj Verma, IAS, Additional Chief Secretary to Government of Tamil Nadu, Minister of IT and Panchayati Raj. Shri Hansraj Verma, sir, is currently serving as the Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu, and is looking after Panchayati Raj and Rural Development Departments. He is a 1986 batch IAS officer of Tamil Nadu, and Shri Verma is a postgraduate in management and has experience of working in departments like environment and forest, labor, planning, geology, mining and electronics. He has held important portfolios like Collector, Salem District, Inspector General Registration Department, Tamil Nadu Electricity Board Chairman, Secretary to His Excellence Governor of Tamil Nadu, Chairman and Managing Director, SIDCO, Chairman and Managing Director, TIDCO, Principal Secretary, Environment and Forest Department, Additional Chief Secretary, Rural Development and Panchayat Raj Department, Additional Chief Secretary, FAC, Special Program Implementation Department, and Additional Chief Secretary, FAC, MSME Department. Ladies and gentlemen, with a big round of applause, we'd like to welcome Thiru Hansraj Verma sir on stage. So please come forward. Can I request Mr. Atul, our President of LCNA and Vice Chairman and CEO of Dixon Technologies, to please welcome him with a bouquet and shawl. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep the applause coming. Welcome, sir. Welcome once again, sir. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a panel discussion on strategizing to access GVC's priority sectors. And now I'd like to invite on stage a moderator for this session, Mr. Josh Fogel, the Country Head and Managing Director, Bharat FIH Limited. Mr. Josh holds a master's degree in industrial engineering from University of Texas at Arlington and a partial MBA in e-commerce from University of Dallas. He is currently the head of Foxconn mobile phones operations in India and is setting up the company's manufacturing operations, which has an ambitious plan for a number of locations across the country. While with Nokia, he was responsible for worldwide material planning and management for Nokia's mechanics. Factories located in China, India, Hungary, Mexico, and Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and let's welcome our moderator for this session, Mr. Josh. Welcome, sir. Now I'd like to welcome our panelists. Mr. Vinod Sharma, the past President, LCNA and Managing Director of Techie Electronics Limited. Mr. Vinod is a successful entrepreneur and has spent 25 passionate years in shaping Techie Electronics Limited into a world-class film capacitor manufacturer. The company has recently diversified to serve the electric vehicle industry, offering state-of-the-art chargers and innovative parallel battery drive. Enthusiastic, value-based participative management and high levels of customer orientation have ensured an annual average growth in excess of 20% over the last 2 decades. He plays a very active role in the electronics community in India, investing a substantial amount of time and effort in serving the industry associations, representing the industry at several stakeholders' interventions. He has held leadership positions at LCNA, President from 2002 to 2004 at the Export Promotion Council, ESC Chairman 2012 to 2014, and at CII National ICTE Committee Chairman 2012 onwards. He was recently elected Chairman, CII UP State Council 2019 to 2020. He was awarded the Electronics Man of the Year during 2013 by EFY and by LCNA during 2017. He has retained expert at CBI, Center for Developing Imports from Developing Countries, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Netherlands. He has also co-authored Value Magics, a new roadmap to global markets with his colleague, Mr. Hans. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it out for Mr. Vinod Sharma. I'd now like to invite on stage Mr. Gagan Bansal, the President, Sales TDK India Private Limited. He has more than 26 years of experience in the electronics industry and has worked for brands like Siemens, Epcos, and TDK. He is accredited to have grown the business of TDK Electronics Components in India substantially in all application fields in the last few years. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gagan Bansal has started a graduate trainee engineer in this company and moving up the ranks, now holds a position of President Sales Marketing at TDK India. He is also associated with Elsina for the last 10 years as an active member of Elsina Executive Committee and has been member of the task force on electronics components manufacturing for bringing attention to the long-standing problem of adequacy and investment and manufacturing capabilities for electronic components of India. Welcome, sir. Let's hear it up, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause, please. And now to our final panel member, Mr. Amit Kumar, the Managing Director and Partner, Boston Consulting Group. He leads the topics of electronics engineering R&D services in India for BCG. He leads multiple strategy GTM organizational redesign projects with leading Indian EMS and ER&D players, and also works closely with PE funds to support investment in Indian EMS. Ladies and gentlemen, additionally, he works closely with NASSCOM, ER&D Council across range and council strategic initiatives and published joint report with NASSCOM on future of ER&D in India in 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for Mr. Amit Kumar. And now may I request our guest of honor, Thiruhans Raj Verma, IAS, ACS and MD and Chairman, the Tamil Nadu Industrial Investment Corporation Limited, so to please come forward and address the gathering. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir, you can sit from there and address too. Everybody, let's hear it up. Please put your hands together. Thank you very much.
Organizer of the event, the 13th edition of SOS India Elsina, my fellow panelists, Josh, Vinod, Amit, Gagan, and distinguished participants. Friends, more than a chief guest, I am part of the Elsina family. I have been associated with this event for the last 3 editions and I work very closely with them for positioning Tamil Nadu, for positioning India as the leading manufacturing of electronics. I will just mention a few strategic trends, considerations which we have to factor in as we plan and optimize our strategy for positioning India in its rightful position. The geopolitical context today, friends, points to only one direction, towards India. It is India's time now. And this calls for collective partnerships across all the stakeholders, whether it's government, the trade bodies, individual units, the MSMEs. Collectively, we need to come together on a strategic platform where our collective strengths come into play for a bigger outcome, a bigger good, bigger things for the sector. We have 2 clear guiding principles, the North Stars for the industry. One is the clarion call of the Honorable Prime Minister of India to make India Atmanirbhar, to make India self-reliant, make in India. Second, the local call of our Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu to make Tamil Nadu economy a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Now, both these guiding principles, clarion calls, in this achieving these objectives, electronics, the modern day foundation of any sector, is going to play a crucial role. I was listening to our chief guest in the morning, Mr. Krishnan, our colleague from Tamil Nadu, a well-wisher of Tamil Nadu. Today, he is the Secretary Meeting Government of India. It is going to be a cluster-based approach. It is here Tamil Nadu's unique strengths I like to highlight. Recently, we have successfully completed the Global Investors Meet 2024. The key theme was to position Tamil Nadu as a knowledge economy, as a knowledge hub, an economy driven by innovation, R&D, and the next age, the next level, technical skills. It is here Tamil Nadu stands out very, very clearly. The ecosystem of Tamil Nadu, the various clusters, the policy stability, the proactive bureaucracy, all support to the sector makes Tamil Nadu's position very, very unique. Today, before this event, I was with the SID meet, the Society for Indian Defence Manufacturers. There also, the key discussion was electronics is going to power India's defence manufacturing. Whether it's aerospace, the Navy, the armed forces, electronics is going to play a very, very crucial role. So, the sector, both civil, commercial, the mobile phones, the white goods, plus defense is going to play a very, very crucial growth engine for the sector. Other sector is going to be renewable energy. Friends, I also head the Tamil Nadu Energy Development Agency. As a part of my mandate, we are positioning our MSMEs on the world stage. We are trying to ensure that through proactive strategies that our MSMEs continue to be part of the global supply chains, for which they will need energy efficiency, again electronics, deployment of green energy, which will need production of wind, solar, hybrids in the state, in India. We will need grid stability, again powered by electronics. So India's energy transition with the goal of net zero by 2070, with the goal of having 50% of energy mix from RE sources, the renewable energy sources by 2030, is another very, very huge growth area. Majority of the OEMs in the wind sector are based in Tamil Nadu. Every wind turbine needs about 9,000 components. So if you want to optimize the production of RE, optimize its deployment in the grid, optimize its offtake by the industries, electronics will come to play in a big way. So you name a sector, electronics is the backbone, the foundation. It is here Tamil Nadu with its unique strengths, unique industrial strengths, unique strengths of having urban industrial clusters spread throughout the state, unique sense of having the next generation of technical skills by the workforce, a focus on knowledge economy, focus on IP, focus on R&D is the right place for having Source India in Chennai. It's a matter of great pride for all of us that recently we heard the good news that for the first time Tamil Nadu has topped 1 billion exports US dollars from Tamil Nadu in a month. It's a matter of great pride for the state, for the nation, for the sector and all of us. So friends, using this podium and platform, I will appeal for partnerships by all the stakeholders, the assurance that Government of Tamil Nadu is there for you. For anything, the bureaucracy, the various agencies of the Industries Department, whether it's guidance, TIDCO, SIPCOT, TIC, they're going to handhold you, facilitate you. The ease of business is going to be a very high level. Come invest in Tamil Nadu, your natural choice for investments, where a state where you will get the maximum throughput for your capital investments, where the ecosystem is there. You can leverage the ecosystem for positioning yourself on the world stage. This is the thought leadership. This is the technology leadership of Tamil Nadu. So friends, since we have just completed the global investors meet, once again, welcome to Tamil Nadu. This is your place of choice. This is the place where investments will yield you the maximum throughputs, maximum outcomes. So come invest, partner with Tamil Nadu. The state will welcome you with open arms and provide you the necessary ecosystem which will exceed your expectations and give that wow. Thank you and good day.
These mics don't come with instructions, you know. You need to hold this for 3 seconds. Anyway, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to see you. And you've been a very warm supporter of the industry, of this particular event, and anything in Tamil Nadu and beyond. So thank you very much, sir. And we'll remember the North Star example you've given us. So I think it's something to talk about. So today I get to ask questions to my wonderful panel. So we have a very interesting mix of panelists, and I don't know what Hansraj ji signed up for today. So I think he's very comfortable in this session. So today we are here to talk about what is global value chains. What are they looking for? What are the strategic priorities which are driving? And this panel here is going to share their thoughts. Towards the end, we would love to ask some questions from you as well. Maybe comments, we can hold it for the lunch session, but your questions are also welcome towards the end. So the first question is, what is a global value chain? A value chain is in a sense a brand which has a global reach. I will take sort of a non-electronics example. For instance, Hyundai, which is very much in Chennai, is a global value chain. They have markets across the world. They have presence in every part of the world, and they do many things in-house, and a lot of things are done outside. They sort of source. As an example, Hyundai, for instance, designs the product offerings, but the modules, the electronic modules, these systems, these subsystems are designed by somebody else. So there is a big design piece there. Then there is manufacturing. In Hyundai's case, they do it themselves. In some other cases, in electronics, I will say about 80-90% of electronics manufacturing is outsourced to EMS companies. And many of you are here in the audience. And then comes what Mr. Krishnan talked about was the components or the supply chain. And then comes the equipment suppliers and whatnot, right? So this is a value chain. Now in India has actually been a part of Fortune 250, Fortune 500 value chains for a long time. And Amit is an expert in that. India has been part of the IT services for more than 30 years, global value chains for more than 30 years. And so we already have an exposure, experience, and the good news is that India has built a level of trust already. The concept of trusted value chains is already there, okay? So that is, sort of what a value chain is. And with that said, I will ask a question to Amit. The question to Amit is, what do global value chains look for?
If I look at it from a global value chain perspective, it is always a C-suite agenda, because everything they have to do, they have to balance what we call as the golden triad. The three things which are very important for them is the cost, the second is the quality, and third is the reliability. Every decision is taken with the fact that these three aspects, which are like very often three ends of a equilateral triangle, are balanced with each other. And what has happened is that in the past about 15 to 20 years, the digital part of the value chain has successfully been delivered out of India in different shapes and forms. And it is not just IT services. You name any big product company, you name any big chip designer, they've been here for at least 2 to 3 decades, and a successful one. What we've seen is that in the last 5 to 7 years, 3 things have disrupted the equilibrium which was existing in the value chains. Number one, we all know there has been a trade war, right? Has been ongoing, many implications on variety of organizations. Number two, which is distinct from the trade war, is the actual wars that are happening unfortunately today. Nowhere in the history, right, of last about 2 to 3 decades, we have so many active war or warlike situations which are nowhere near the end. It's a prolonged one. And the third one, which is very important, is the undercurrent is the focus on climate and sustainability, which means what am I sourcing, how am I sourcing, what is the impact that I am seeing. All 3 of these have essentially mentioned that nearly all the OEMs are looking at the global value chains and are making decisions on cost, quality and reliability. Some of these are not straightforward decisions. They will decide to move a part of a value chain from one country to another, or in fact set up a second facility to ensure that reliability is there. But all said and done, it is not just the OEMs. The brands today are actually sort of nudging their OEMs, their suppliers, their tier ones to actually do something about it, because it impacts how the brands are perceived by the end consumer. So I'll say it's a complex problem that is being solved. India, fortunately, is at the center of the solution, whichever way we look at it. And there is a huge influx, there is huge value that we can add. But just to say that we are just getting started on that, a lot needs to be done, Josh, over there.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you for giving us a very, very broad perspective. And I think because I think one of the interesting areas is sustainability. We didn't talk about that. But before we come to sustainability, Hansraj ji talked about different sectors, right? He talked about defense, power grid. So there is a big sort of opportunity in India, which is already shaping up, right? So I'm going to kind of put, I'm going to bring, Amit, you and Gagan again into a question of what would be the priority sectors in your opinions, because you guys talk to multiple value chains globally. Gagan is part of the TDK group. Your components go into almost everything in the world, right? So what would you think are some hot sort of sectors, which, the audience and beyond should be looking at?
If you look at, let me say, our overall life, first of all, from morning to evening, we are surrounded by electronics. So everything we do, the moment we get up and by the time we get back to bed, we are surrounded by electronics. So electronics is all pervasive, number one. But there are two, moves which are happening world over, which bring in more and more electronics into our everyday life. And these two are, one is digitalization, and the second one is energy harvesting. So because everybody needs more energy. When I want to segregate these two broad things into some specific applications, then one of the most prominent applications towards energy harvesting would be electric vehicles and automotive. And just to give you a kind of a perspective, just consider approximately a 10 lakh rupee car in India. The average amount of electronics for a normal car in India is in the range of 20%. So let me say about 2 lakhs. In the West, it is a little more, 30-40%. But now consider when it is moving towards an electric vehicle. So this immediately changes from 20% to 70%. So there is an additional electronics content of approximately 5 lakhs on a regular car. When you go into a more high-end car, it definitely increases proportionately. And then you multiply this with at least 4 million vehicles, passenger vehicles, in 1 or 2 million commercial vehicles, and about 15 to 20 million two-wheelers that are being manufactured in the country. And then you also multiply this with the export potential that you have, about 85 million vehicles that are made all over the world. And electronics, as the minister also mentioned, the secretary also mentioned in the morning, can be easily transferred. So there's a huge opportunity in the electric vehicle space, starting from the motor control to the climate control to sensing to dashboard electronics to all the features that you get in everyday cars. So there's a huge, and of course the battery, which is the main part. And we are proud that from TDK we do a lot, but there's a huge opportunity. The second application, which the government is also very well caught on, is the information communications and technology space. So starting with, if you multiply the quantums and the value, smartphone clearly stands out, that is where the maximum value is. So smartphones is one. And the second followed by the IT hardware, which is laptop, desktop servers, which the government has done. But beyond that, there are many, many other things which have started happening but still need to be scaled up. First of all is the network infrastructure. So we have a lot of opportunity, for example, in the 5G deployment scale. We have about 400,000 base stations which have been deployed. And if you look at, my friends from Nokia, if you are here, or from Reliance, if anybody is here, they will vouch for it that, the amount of electronics which goes inside it is enormous. And not only the BTS and the RF sections, there are also some smaller customer premise equipments, routers, network connectors, and other associated air fiber equipments which are required along with it. The next point in ICT communications space would be a lot of IoT devices. Everybody is now talking of IoT and machine-to-machine communication. So billions and billions of IoT devices are going to be needed. And all this is nothing but electronics. Even if you were to move away from the handheld devices, not just smartphones, today we are talking about smart watches, we are talking about Fitbit kind of bands, medical devices and medical bands. So a whole range of hearable devices, wearable devices, augmented reality, virtual reality, XR devices are going to be available, and this is going to be a huge, huge opportunity, and this is definitely a sector. Coming to one more very important, let me say, sector, which is specifically very important for the Indian industry, is the home appliance sector. Even today, in home appliances, the penetration in the Indian market is relatively small. Televisions, which is in the range of about 70% penetration, air conditioners are still in the range of 5%, 6%. If you talk about, let me say, refrigerators, maybe about 30%, but then once again, washing machines is a pity, about 14, 15%. So just look at the amount of options which are available, and everything is getting inverter based, everything is getting more automated. We're now talking of front loaded and automated washing machines and everything. Refrigerators are much more sophisticated today. Air conditioners are all split air conditioners. No more is the time for window air conditioners, which is more energy efficient. So once again, towards the energy harvesting side, home appliances offers a lot of opportunity. A fourth dimension which we have not seen in India in terms of sectors, and which is still a far cry, but I believe we should look at it from an Indian perspective, is robotics. If you just imagine how many number of service robots will be needed, it will be mind-boggling. We have 250 million households, and each and every household, and then also look at the number of industries that we have. So the number of AGVs that we will need for, let me say, for stock management or for material movement, or which will run on these 5G networks, private 5G networks, is enormous. And I'm still not talking of the sophisticated industrial robots, which are already being used but not manufactured or designed in India. And last, for all this, we need a lot of design. Yeah. So all these sectors, and then the design capability for all these sectors. And under the design capability, there are a lot of startups, innovative companies. We heard about one company from Sensors by Mr. Vinod and Sri Ramchandranji and other members of Elsina who have started this, a very novel idea. But I think there's much more to do, and that is how India will get onto these applications like robotics or communications or automotive, and encash on all these opportunities apart from smartphones and IT hardware, which has already been recognized by the government.
Thanks, Gagan. So Amit, do you disagree, agree?
I think there is nothing that I can disagree with what Mugenji has said. It covers most of the aspects. I just want to maybe bring in two a bit on tangential aspects. Is A, if we look at the tech stack that we use, right? If we look at the value chain, the tech stack, is it a global tech stack or is it a indigenized or Indian company-owned tech stack? I think that's a very important aspect. What we are seeing is there is a concerted effort by startups, large corporations, as well as the government to actually have a tech stack which is India-owned. And there are implications of 2-3 orders to that. There are computational chips, there are memory chips which are being designed. The question comes is that we can design those chips, we can have those motherboard designed. Are we able to actually manufacture that in India for whether it is for the industrial, whether it is for a cost basis or whether it is for defense? I think so that's a very important aspect to be looked into as we think about the value chains. The second one is the medical technology, is medtech as we typically call. The kind of population coverage that we need and the kind of healthcare infrastructure that we have, unfortunately without technology we will never be able to meet our healthcare goals. Today there is a very good innovation being done both by the established multinational players who are making products for India, in India, as well as a lot of startups coming up with specific applications. This I also think is a big opportunity as we think about the value chains.
Thank you. So I'm going to sort of have Hansraj sir, comment. I think, sir, sustainability, I think until 2 years ago was sort of one of those nice to haves. I think in some cases now it's becoming a must have. Any comments, sir, on that?
Green is no longer option, it's imperative today. For every manufacturer, embedding sustainability is a key competitive and business strategy. Friends, as we compete on the global world market and be part of global supply chains, we have to have sustainability as our core business strategy. The emerging trends of CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism of the European Union, so initially only for the energy intensive sectors, initially will cover all the sectors. The Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 standards of the World Sustainability Council, the BRSR code of the SEBI, these are the mega trends we must start negotiating today. You can't postpone a further day. You have to get sustainability as a part of daily business operations. Just look at two small issues immediately. Look at your specific power consumption. Look at specific water consumption. How does that compare with your competitors across the world? And that will become a key determinant in your competitiveness. The ESG framework. Today sustainability is mainstream. So all the manufacturers, right from MSMEs to top tier manufacturers, you have to start looking at that. Start with your energy audits, start looking at energy efficiency, start getting major portion of your energy as green energy. These trends will decide whether it will be sustainable, competitive, and part of the global supply chain in days to come.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it's very important. And I think I'm going to ask some audience participation. I saw Pankaj kind of catching up on his emails, there. So I'm going to quickly point some questions at some of the very attentive audiences there, So, okay, it's Ramchandran sir was disrupting you. Okay, sorry. So, see, I think what we heard is priority sectors and GVCs, and I think, sustainability, things are becoming one of those requirements GVCs are going to ask from us, right? It's not a nice to have, it's going to be a must have, right? So it's going to be part of your design. So my question to the audience is, how many of you are today supporting a global value chain? Just show a raise of hands, please. How many of you are supplying to a global value chain? If you're very brave, you can raise your hands. We won't ask which company, I know you may have some NDAs with them, So I'll say hardly 10-15%, are raising their hands. So clearly we have some work to do. How many of you are supplying to only Indian market? Oh, sorry, Indian market included. I see my team sitting there not raising their hands. You guys, you don't want to participate in the poll, or the coffee didn't reach you? All right. So anyway, thank you. So I think, so Vinod, I'm going to come to you. You've always been, one of the Indian champions. I've known Vinod for almost 20 years, and the kind of energy Vinod brings into the table, especially when you're sitting with multiple global value chains, about what India can do, is just incredible. So I'm going to ask this question to you, Vinod. What can we in India offer?
Thank you for that one, Josh. So let me answer that in numbers and with some acronyms. So it's easy for people to take some notes in that case. So let's look at where we are going. We are at about $100 billion of manufacturing today. We heard this morning too, and we hear it all the time, that $300 billion is where we want to be. So for all the skeptics in the room who think that 300 is not going to happen, or is not going to happen in the 3 or 4 years, very simple mathematical fact is we are about $2.4 trillion as electronics in the world. We are close to about 8 billion people now, and that comes to about somewhere at $300 per capita is the electronics consumption in the world. And if you hear what Gagan and Amit just said, this number is only going to go up. In India, our current manufacturing, also the demand figure is about 120. So you divide that by our population, we are still less than half that number. So going to 100 to 300 from a mathematical perspective, very top of the line calculation is definitely going to happen. I'm not going to debate whether it'll happen in 2 years or 3 or 4. It will happen within our lifetimes and within very, very short period. So companies that are not preparing for that will certainly be left behind. What does this figure $300 billion mean? So there is a large product mix out there. Even the current $100 billion that's being made is made in a certain product mix. There is a certain number ratio that's mobile phones, and there is on the other end of the spectrum LED lights being assembled, right? So obviously they use very different types of the percentage BOM calculations will be different, the semiconductor to non-semiconductor will be different, etc. But I'm going by what is actually happening on the ground today. So in the current product mix, out of the $100 billion that we are actually manufacturing as of last year, 52.7, if I remember my figures correctly, was the electronic component bit of it. So let's say it was 50%, right? When we go to that $300 billion, that means $150 billion of electronic components will be required. Of that, we know, having practiced, I have done something in the electronics business the last 3 decades, I can say, it's easy to say that about 60% of this is going to be semiconductors, and about 40% is non-semiconductor, right? That's the current mix, and it could change again, but in fact, a lot of products we make today are far more on non-semiconductors, but that's going to change clearly. Which means that out of the $150 billion that we require, and just to put it in context, $150 billion of components is a little more than the amount of oil that we are importing today in the country. So it's not a small number, right? Without a plan, we will have to be importing that. So obviously we need a plan in place, and I'm just coming to that very quickly. Out of that $150 billion, let's say I said 40% is non-semiconductor, so that's $60 billion. And what is that? Here's the first acronym, what we are calling now in LCNA, in our component task force, as PEPCAMs, right? So P is for PCBs, E is for electromechanicals, the other P is for passives, all the capacitor, resistors, inductors here. We have C for connectors, we have A for actives, which are non-semiconductor, discrete actives, and then you have M for magnetics, which is all over the place, and finally S for sensors, which Mr. Ramachandran and I and some of our colleagues are trying to do something about. I was shocked, just in numbers when you go in, to just realize last week that we have imported more sensors in this country than PCBs in the last year. So there are some of these, so don't take them very lightly. Each one of them represents a very large value, right? How much out of this, that means that's $60 billion, how much of that are we going to make in this country? And the LCNA Component Task Force report that we are making, which also the Secretary mentioned and said that he's waiting for our final report, and we're just finalizing it now. We are aiming at only half that. So out of the $60 billion, we are saying let's make $30 billion in India. Right. So the first ask is, so what do we offer the GVCs? Another acronym, it's called Delta, right? So D is for demand. So this is the demand there is. Even if we want to take a stab at 50% of the non-semiconductor components, electronic components to be made in India, the PEPCAMs, we will have a demand for at least $30 billion to be made in this country. We know that every 1 crore of turnover in components, the kind of components that are already made in India. And by the way, this PEPCAMs, the good news is that except for sensors, the other PEPCAM at least, we've been making for 40 years in this country, right? In some form or the other. A lot of it is discrete, a lot of it is, almost everything is through hole. It's still not SMD or chip, but we have some experience. So in the Delta, the other E for me is the experience, more importantly, the entrepreneurship. My own company has just turned 40 this year, and the people who started it, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, had no experience of electronics whatsoever. And it always amuses me and sort of energizes me to say that somebody with no experience in electronics, and many of you in the room and the people who started your companies were like that. So there was this entrepreneurial energy that came in the 80s and the policies at that point of time that sort of started that. And I think that entrepreneurship, that energy is now required for us to push that again. And when you come to India, that $30 billion, some bravehearts will make it on their own, some global value chains will shift, but a lot of them will need joint venture partners, they will need the local experience to be able to take this actually off the ground. So that's the other one. Now, so if I take this calculation of 1 crore of component manufacturing, actually delivering 5 jobs in my opinion on the ground. So that's the direct number of jobs. Do your own maths. That's the maths that we have done at LCNA. If I were to do $30 billion, that's 1.2 million jobs, right? So now I need labor. That's the other L. And these 1.2, I don't think any other country can offer. That age group, that profile, people who are educated high school, ITIs or whatever, who will be, because, with absolutely due respect to all my assembly partners, the kind of labor you need in manufacturing components is quite different. These are medium to high skilled jobs. These are not jobs that you can get somebody from the outside and within a week they will start assembling a capacitor onto a PCB board. It doesn't work like that. So these are capital goods, there is raw material, there is statistical process techniques. So some of us who are doing those components know that very well. So these are good quality jobs, sustainable jobs. 1.2 million, it's not a small number for any other country, and I don't think anybody else in the world will be able to offer that. Within that L, you can also say land. This needs a lot of land, it needs a lot of flatted factories. We have land. I mean, there is something I want to say about cost of industrial land, but we can leave that for the moment. Then there is the T, which is the talent that we have. So it's not just labor, but it's the managerial, middle managerial, supervisory talent. If you've been recently to Japan or to South Korea or even to China, the population is aging. So even the supervisory population that we need for manufacturing, being able to supervise 1.2 million people is not a small number. Again, fortunately, India can offer that. So talent and also to some extent technology. Because let's not forget that there are other areas that we are quite good at, including space, for example. So there is a lot that we can, material sciences, there are a lot of our CMET labs that have done extremely good work. It's lying somewhere at the TRL 4, 5, 6 level. There is a case to be made, including our academic institutions, that we can take this technology and start dreaming about new technology components. We can come to that a little later. And finally, the last A that I would leave what we have to offer, I think is this hunger, this ambition, this aspiration that a very large part of the population wants to get out of that lower middle class, middle class, and move to a higher level, right? Now this combination, in my opinion, is absolutely lethal. If we get this wrong, then something is really wrong with us as a population, right? So what we managed to do is, we managed to get the policy environment, and I will stop with that, for how to assemble products in this country. I always say it's like a 4 into 400 meter relay. Only the first leg, which is the assembly of products in India, no matter whose products they are, no matter who's designed them, that the EMS bit is what we've got right. Fantastic. Great. I think we all need to congratulate ourselves. But we got there. Now come to the next leg. As the stickiness of the first, How do you make sure that this baton, this little lead you've got over whoever needs to stay as a lead? I think that can, as also the secretary was saying this morning, that stickiness will only come if we get that second leg right, which is to get the components, not just the semiconductors, but also the non-semiconductors, both of them going together. So the semiconductors we have a policy for already, right? And hopefully we will see some great announcements coming. Some are already there in the offing. So that's good news. Unfortunately, this PepCam bit, we have not taken a stab at it yet. We are working very closely, and we would love to do more of this, because it's just something that we have to do. There is absolutely no other choice that we have. And not to forget that within the PepCams, it's equally important that we dig the value chain deeper. So it's not just manufacturing components, it's the raw material and the capital goods for manufacturing goods. So, a film capacitor cannot be made without good polypropylene polyester film. That cannot be made without the granules. That cannot be done without metallizing a film. You can't do PCBs without laminates, etc., etc. So it's a huge opportunity, and 1.2 million is only the components. So the moment you go one tier lower to some key raw material, hey, this is great, because when I mentioned technology, we have chemical technology, we do well there, right? So, and a lot of this components is finally mechanical, chemical, thermal, pneumo, whatever. So there is a lot to be done in that area, and so we need to get this piece of this PepCam going. I will stop with that.
Thank you, Vinod. As always, supported by acronyms which we can remember, and analogies and statistics. Thank you. So I have a very quick pop quiz, and maybe I will come to Pankaj, your table also, So in terms of, if I had one or two components which are missing today, which, we should build capability, what would those components be? I'm just going to give Amit, what would you prefer is a priority component?
I think the electromechanical one is a good place to start, right? Very important in all the applications that we see today,
Okay.
especially EVs.
Gagan, you're going to promote your product?
Yeah, of course, my part, but one more, reason for that. I would like that India should get into the bandwagon of at least one chip component. That's where the process and the technology is. And if we do not get onto the technology part of the whole value chain, it is only a matter of time when the whole activity is shifting from one geography to the other. Today it is India, but who knows, tomorrow it could be South America or Mexico or Africa. So we should not be kept waiting. So we should hatch on to one technology which is really in depth, and chip technology would be one. And maybe also another one would be substrate technology. So if we can get onto the substrate technology, this would be my pick on that.
Okay. Very good. I'll come back to Hansraj, sir, because you're going to answer all these questions later about what you're going to do. So, Vinod, you want to?
Yeah, I'll take, though I manufacture the one in the middle of PepCams, that is passives, but I think what is very important on the one hand is PCBs. If we can just get our PCBs going, that is the natural, logical sort of next step to EMS. So if the PCBs are designed here, obviously our prototyping will happen faster, our manufacturing will happen faster, and I see no reason that we can't do that. Also the number of, if you look at the PCB imports, it's a very large number and very customized. I mean, the PCB is a PCB for each one of you, right? On the other end is S, which is for sensors, because I think a lot of new age electronics starts with the sensing part of it, whether it's electronics going to agriculture, whether it's going to healthcare, a little diabetes patch, it's your tire pressure monitor for safety of your automobile. So if you look at all these applications at the other end, energy efficiency, or solar tracking, everything is to do with sensors, and unfortunately we have almost zero sensors at the moment in the country. A lot of this is new technology, and in sensors also I picked that because I think the technology gap is large, but it's large for everybody because everybody is struggling with it at the moment. So I would pick these two on the other ends.
Thank you. I'm going to pop a little bit there. My friend from Bosch, what components would you pitch for? Can we get a mic for him, please? Quickly circulate the mics. Sorry to... I heard PCBs. Is that what he said? All right, please.
Mainly PCBs. Second is the connectors, the electromechanical, where most of the pins makes around 40% of the connector cost.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of suppliers for that.
Super.
Yeah.
Pankaj, you want to take a shot?
Okay. Hi. I was taking notes, Josh. Not doing my mails that time. Anyway, okay, I agree with Vinod. I think PCBs is something that we definitely need. It's a building block. And the second would definitely be the surface mount components, and that could be the chip resistors, the chip capacitors, and also the surface mount active semiconductors. So the surface mount and the PCBs is what my take would be on this. Thank you.
All right. You know, Hansraj ji is taking notes very actively. So Tamil Nadu is going to offer support for all of this stuff, right? Not just semiconductor. Atul bhai, you want to suggest something? I can give you my mic.
So undoubtedly, what is being suggested here, PCB is an extremely important building block. SMT devices, electromechanicals, they're critical. And we have large conglomerates like Bosch pitching in for it, yourself pitching in for it. I'll take a liberty of just adding my bit. You see, also extremely important is that we have to reflect. Let's say in the EMS sector, or in the devices manufacturing sector, and even going beyond electronics, what has been the success factor? You see, you need a flag bearer to put the industry together. Auto industry in India took off with Maruti coming in. That changed the shape. You did it for electronics in Nokia. Yeah, we had an accident, but it started off with Nokia. And now, large part of what we are talking about, anyway, we're talking about $1 billion of export from the state of Tamil Nadu in a single month, the flag bearer is Apple. So any sector of non-semiconductor components we are talking about, we together in Elsina, along with the government, has to bring in a couple of flag bearers. TDK is one. We need some of the largest players, let's say in PCB. Along with the state government, we need to really excite them to make investments in India. I have a firm conviction that 3-4 such large investments across 3-4 different non-semiconductor spaces is going to keep the ball rolling, and then it just takes off.
Fantastic. Thank you, Atul bhai. Appreciate it. So, Hansraj sir, the question to you is, I think the global value chains, as Atul bhai mentioned, are here. More will come following this. We are very confident. Some of ideas are here. As Krishnan sir said, the component imports have increased. What Vinod and all our colleagues here have said is some ideas. So, question, and I hate to put you on the spot for Tamil Nadu. This is not your current portfolio, even though you have done many things in this area. What can Tamil Nadu government, Government of India offer global value chains and component investors to take off this, this component supply chain?
I will take it beyond land incentives. Vinod mentioned about talent and ambition. From the key today for all of us is these sectors need to provide those jobs that meet the aspirations of the youth. Our youth is aspirational. Here, industry has to come forward in partnership with all the stakeholders in nurturing that talent. Tamil Nadu's niche area is a knowledge economy, high-end talent. But this needs partnership. We have a fantastic scheme called Non-Mudalon scheme is there, where the academia industry work together. Today we have got the Tata Technologies invested about 2,000 crores in the 76 ITIs. State-of-the-art infrastructure is there in the ITIs, which we can use over the weekends for upskilling and reskilling our workers. So the key strength of Tamil Nadu, what we can offer the global supply chains is high quality talent.
Thank you, sir. I can tell you, I think what Atul Bhai mentioned, when I came back to India 20 years ago, as a part of my previous employer, we chose Tamil Nadu for that reason. And here we are, so I'm still growing. So we have a last word from all of you. So, but I liked a couple of words, so I'm going to twist the question a little bit. I know you might have had your last word practiced, Gagan, in front of the mirror. I'm going to change that a little bit now, so the question I have is, Atul Bhai mentioned flag bearer in the GVC, flag bearer in the value chain, right? So one of the things which Vinod Bhai talked about was, hey, how do we get this technology over? All the sensors are imported today, right? How do we sort of get there? We don't have time to invent this, right? Global value chains are like, I need this here today, otherwise I'm going to import, right? And this could be sensitive technology, right? One idea is joint ventures. Another idea is investments, right? So in your last word, you suggested some components, so I'm going to start with you, Amit. And I know you have front row seats in many of these conversations. How do you think this can fly? Because we don't have too much time, right? How do you think what would be the mechanism to accelerate this value chains, value addition in India in this decade, please?
I think so. What I am hearing here in the room, right, is that everyone agrees that the time has come. I think there is no question or debate about that. The question is that who takes the first step. I think then others will follow. I actually believe that there are 3 or 4 ways in this will get covered. I mean, if you look at the example of Apple, right, the kind of value addition they have bought, they actually bought their partners to India. So it is not just the OEMs, it is the brands that can also take the first step, right? I think the second is that in terms of the ability for continuity of the our manpower, right? So how do the manpower which is currently in EMS industry, what is next for them, right? I think this also provides a very good career path for them. And lastly, I'll say that the government and the industry is working together. That just needs to continue. It's working beautifully.
Gagan?
So, as I mentioned, just catching on to the whole discussion that has happened, and what has already been achieved in this country in the last, let me say, 5 to 7 years. EMS, a good success. So the next topic for all of us should extend beyond manufacturing, and it should be technology. Okay, so technology manufacturing, and that's what I meant when I said that, we talk of components, which components. So rather than talking of which components, let us talk of which technology, so that we are really Atmanirbhar in the real sense and we make for the global world. And when we do that, we should always look at scale. If you don't look at scale, you will remain an MSME and you will not be able to serve the global value chain, maybe only a regional or an Indian value chain. So if you really need the global value chain, scale. And third point is, what Atulji very aptly mentioned, an anchor unit. So in the electronic sector, Nokia was one, Apple is the second, but these are not Indian companies. Sorry, but these are not Indian companies. We need an Indian anchor. And Tata's and Reliance have started becoming Reliance in the ICT space, and Tata's in the automotive and the communication space. We need somebody more, a large Indian anchor company. And how do we do that? Look at an example of Ola. Okay, so this is into automotive space. This started very small. We need to nurture our startups. There's tremendous potential, or somebody from us has to start doing something new. Very happy to hear that Vinodji and his team is doing something for sensors. But that's, I think, what will take us to the next level.
Awesome. Thank you. Vinod?
Okay, numbers again. This is going to be hard. So GVC shifting, if I were a GVC, my question obviously is, why should I come to India? Right? And we need to give them the reasons. If you look at the success that we all talk about, mobile phone assembly in India, a few things went right for them, and maybe we can learn from that example. Number one, there was someone like an Apple who wanted to come to India, probably for market reasons, probably for geopolitical reasons. There was something that they said, hey, we need to move out of China. So they started looking for a China plus one, they found India. But there are many China plus ones available. So what really made it tick? In my opinion, there was a carrot and stick. The stick was a 20% duty on mobile phones. So whatever little your market share in India was, doing it at a 20% plus was not going to be easy. That's my personal take on this. On the other hand, you also had a PLI, which is 456. So let's take it as an average of 5% of your turnover, right? So for a value that we, that we are now saying is about 10 to 50%, 10 to 15% value addition, I had a 20% stick and a 5% carrot, right? And obviously, it was a no-brainer that it needed to be done. Not saying it's easy, I'm not taking anything away from that, but that's the mathematical gap that we are looking at. Now when you get to pepcams, for example, or let's look at semiconductors, the same thing. The same issues that plague the semiconductor business, except for one, which is a very intensive technology. So that bit is probably different for the two of us. But between semiconductors and pepcams, if you look at the turnover to investment ratio, I put 100 crores on the ground, I get a turnover of 100 crores. Right. On that 100 crores, even if you give me this 5% PLI, I get only 5 crores. To my investment, I'm only getting a 5% return on my investment. Or whatever, or the subsidy or incentive or whatever we want to call it. It's too little. Because the value add that I have to do in a component typically is about 30 to 40%. If I do a 40% value add, where does that value add come from? It is not material, it is material plus. So it is the cost of energy, it's the cost of logistics, it's the cost of people, mainly, right? Or the cost of technology if I'm borrowing or licensing some technology. All these four are more expensive in India than they are elsewhere. The more value I add, the more is going to be the impact of the disabilities that any country has, and India has its own set of disabilities. So even if I got exactly the package that mobile phones got, it is not going to work for us. We need something more than that. So you can't put a 20% duty, and we are not asking for it because I don't think that's a positive way of looking at what we are trying to do in India. So it's not with tariff walls, hence nothing but an incentive would come in. Part one of the story. Now, I don't expect the government to be giving us a 15-20% incentive. So you need to space this out. If we are using more labor, we are arguing for something called a labor incentive, an employee-linked incentive, if you want to call it ELI. The more value we add, the more GST we bring into the country. So make it instead of a production-linked, a value-added linked incentive. The more value somebody is adding, the more domestic value he is adding, great. It is an automatic incentive for being Atmanirbhar. Like happened in the IT hardware space, our OEMs are being incentivized to buy a local PCB, to buy a local component. Now that formula needs to work. Give them an incentive. Somebody in the system needs to have an incentive, right? So some of it to the component makers, but maybe even to our buyers, so that they've always find a 5 to 10% gap between what's happening in India. So even in the existing, if you take a poll within LCRA members, you will see that our capacity utilization is probably languishing at something like sub 80% for sure, but maybe 70 to 80%. In that environment, you want this person to go and again invest 100 crore rupees to get 100 crore turnover is not going to happen, right? And finally, I think nothing works anywhere in the trade world I've seen. We all talk about the great success of the auto industry. There has to be some kind of a protective measure which says, you know what, Mr. Tesla, if you want to sell a car in India, you got to make it in India, right? So we may not like this, and this may not be, macroeconomics will not agree with me here, but we do not have any example in the world of any component or product being made at zero duty in large numbers. China also didn't make it in zero duty. They had a huge amount of non-tariff measures. They opened the gates very wide, but you try to sell a component to China and you will know what kind of non-tariff measures there are. So incentives and this thing for a short period of time. I'm not wanting to hide behind walls, but this is the reality. You cannot make it happen. Let me give you an example of the simplest one. You mentioned electric cars, Gagan. I was reading an article by Murata, I think it says, every cell phone uses about 25 to 50 MLCCs, right? Every new car, a Tesla for example, I believe the number is as large as 20,000 MLCCs. We don't make a single one in India. So I said, hey, I make capacitors, why don't I look at this very seriously? Got into a year-long discussion with many companies, right? The numbers, the top 5 guys who make MLCCs in the world today, Samsung, Murata, TDK is one of them. Average investment into MLCCs is upwards of $500 million. The turnover on MLCCs is $1 billion plus each one of them. Highly profitable. 18 paise MLCC uses 11 paise ceramic paste. That ceramic paste technology is with them. So if one of us stands up with our little 100 crores, won't be counted, will be, it's not going to work that way. So I think in some components, we got to be very wise about this. In some components, we have no choice but to lay out the red carpet, and like we did for many other people like Apple or Foxconn or whoever, we need to say, hey man, I need you, Mr. Murata. I need you, Mr. TDK. Tell me what you want. What is your wish list? Let's get you in. For some others, we say, yeah, we need you, but we're not that desperate. We have some Indian guys who can help you. Why don't you do joint ventures and we will do what is required for that. It could be electronic manufacturing clusters with plug and play like in China, employees staying within the premises, working 12 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day, getting double overtime so that they get rich while the country is trying to get rich. Just one more bit. I forgot in the last one to complete my relay race. And it also comes in here because those two are equally important for components. The third leg of my relay race, we all know is not mine, but our relay race, is the design part of it. Gagan mentioned it. There's a big difference between when a product is designed in India, automatically the value chains that will be considered, the component people who will be considered, will be the local players. If today I'm designing something sitting in Santa Clara or in China or in Taiwan, it is but natural that I will pick up components from there, and the rest of this will struggle to get into that value chain, into that system. And the fourth leg is, I don't think any country is built without the brands that it commands, right? So a Sony and a Panasonic and a Matsushita made, or Toyota made Japan what it is. Samsungs and LGs and Daewoo in the yesteryears and Hyundai today made Korea what it is. We need our own Indian brands who will be actually selling in their name with their designs across the world. And I think that's bound to happen, and we can't be waiting for now the component piece to get done to the other two to stick its nut. So in my opinion, we need to start looking at all three patents simultaneously and start working on all three together.
No, thank you. I think it's going to be a 4x100. It's going to go down a little fast, so I think 4x400 is also fast, and the difference is that you don't stick to your lanes, there, but I think, yeah, maybe the 4x400 is a better relay example. Yes, you do. That's a good point. Speed and stamina, you're right. And there will be people overlapping you in the lane. So India is not alone in this, right? But I think, maybe just to wrap, I'm going to come for questions. I think we have time for about 3 questions. Nobody has flagged me so far. That clock still says 20 minutes, so we can talk 20 minutes more, but we need to talk about that clock, So I'm going to come to my ICT Academy team for a question soon, so please think of something. And but my other team has disappeared. I don't know where they are, so they know I ask questions to the backbenchers. So one of you can walk back there, so there are very eager professors there who will ask questions. So clearly, at least from what we heard from the panel today, global value chains are welcome. Possibly even Indian global value chains are welcome. It starts with design. EMS boxes more or less checked, but components have to be supported, here so that we have a full sort of offer to them. Vinod's idea of this, or analogy of this 4x4, I think is key on how we do this. And I am very confident, very, very confident that there will be 2 things which will happen by 2030. I think one is probably going to be, there is going to be a conversation called India +1 at that time, because there will be too much concentration in India. I love to hear that term. Hey, guys, we need an India +1. And the second thing is, one of the things we plan for end of January is the Chinese New Year for supply chain planning. I'd like to have two things added there. One is Diwali, and other is Pongal in the calendar. So hopefully, maybe Elsina 30, maybe not that much. Maybe Elsina 25. I think I'd like to see if we can have that sort of the part of the conversation. Questions, ICT Academy, please.
Yeah, this question is to Vinod. Vinod, you were mentioning about the L and T of your acronym, which is the labor and the talent part of it. As an organization which we focuses on the talent development side of it, the spectrum at which we are trying to address is the higher education space. So not much on the labor side of it, which is the blue collar segment. Now when we talk about the talent on the electronic space, wherein I think there's a lot of investment that's been going on, and there are a lot of initiatives that have been going on for the IT related training all across the nation, and there's much. And as Sir, our Secretary Hansraj Verma was mentioning about it, the non-Mudalvan scheme. Okay. What is the area which the state or the nation has to focus on developing the talent pertaining to this electronic industry? Because we are talking about engineering institutions offering a lot of programs on electronic, but specific to the focus, how the IT industry, the NASSCOM took that initiative of focusing on certain verticals of skills. What is that as an industry which we need to look at focusing on the electronic side? Is it, because it's a too vast spectrum. Like when you talk about IT services, it is slightly different. So this is quite wide. So which one of that which we need to focus, and where do we start off with?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So I presume you're already focused on the high-end part of technology. So I'm not going to talk about that. It's extremely important, whether it's design of semiconductors, starting from that to application design, etc. But let's leave that for the moment. I find that with the numbers I gave you, say about 1.2 million people talking about in the component business, as an example, I think there is a very similar number we will achieve in also the assembly part of it. And it's only right that, so my observations, my factory is in Noida, so this comment is based on that experience. Unfortunately, over the years, the schooling system is failing to deliver anything of value to people like us in the factories. And I remember one of our favorite HR questions, because we put out boards all over Noida saying Karamchari Chahiye or whatever, and some 30-40 people land up every morning, or whichever our recruitment day is. My HR, there's a junior team that looks at them, and the way they used to screen these people were only two things: look for their Aadhaar card, so that we were shocked many of them were actually graduates, but they would not declare their graduates. It's only through the Aadhaar card you find out, and because they thought they were overqualified, and they were feeling, there were many reasons why they were doing that, but that's an interesting one. But the second question they always asked them was a very simple percentage question. I've given you 50 rupees and I want 40% out of that back. How much do you have left? Something which sounds as simple as that. The number of people failing that very simple question has been dramatically growing in the last few years. So I'm not going to give you a very high sophisticated answer, but my answer is, people who can come into a factory, learn to use a Western toilet if there is a Western toilet, an Indian toilet if there is an Indian toilet, be able to. In my own factory, I've set up a full training center today. On one staircase and one corridor, there is a stopwatch which just gets them what is the right speed to walk at in a factory. Because you have people just either walking as if they're having an evening stroll. There are others who are rushing past, which is unsafe because they're dropping things on the way, etc., etc. So we've had to go to that extent. So I think such, you may call them finishing schools or whatever, and I don't blame them. These people have never seen a factory in their lives. So if we are going through such a large transformation of a country, I think it is only proper that, and I'm not going to ask the government to do anything in this. People like you and me can do this together. The schools are dying for it. The colleges are asking us, hey, what is the talent you want? And through that we did develop this whole NSDC, and then the Electronic Sector Skill Council came in. Unfortunately, the low-hanging jobs at that point of time were installation of a set-top box or a dish antenna, and now a little bit of repair of mobile phones, which is fine, nothing wrong with installations and repairs. Now with solar roof, yesterday's Prime Minister's policy, there will be a lot of people who have to hang up on roofs and start putting the solar panels. So by all means, we should encourage that kind of skills. But I'm talking of factory skills where saying simple, how to be a good worker, maybe even an assembly worker. A simple sticks about, every assembly supervisor who's supervising 10 or 12 people in a line needs some very simple work motion study, nothing very sophisticated. But if he wants to become useful, and all of us have walked around factories in China, it's quite amazing how much they are able to deliver. Capital goods I was talking about, 3 young kids I've seen actually deliver a fairly complicated machinery to us in a month's time. Without any understanding of English. We were actually Google translating to each other what we wanted. Just some drawings, and I don't know where they picked. Of course, it's the ecosystem that helps them, because things like machine frames, a bowl feeder to be able to deliver the component, a linear feeder to be able to put it online, a picker, a robot, these are all available. So for them, like we are doing Lego in our schools, these guys are actually doing machine manufacturing at that level. So it's all possible. I mean, and I think I can go on with examples, but we need to really think of people we need in the factory. Quite honestly, what they've taken to learn to get to in 10 years can actually be done in 10 months if we had trained them properly and we had taken the right simulation, the right tests. It's all possible. I have one, sorry, I'll just labor a little bit. On electronic sector skill, in fact, I've been promoting something very simple called Ustad. It's basically upskilling through technology and action deployment. We are trying to do it at Deki also. And what this does is very simple. Break down every single skill. In fact, I call it the McDonaldization. Right? If you try to do French fries at home, it's impossible to do good French fries. How does a 10th standard pass guy go into McDonald's and start the very next day with a little hat? He starts frying French fries. It's because, in my opinion, the process, so the raw material is fixed. The potato seed is given to the farmer to a particular soil. You get only those potatoes. They go only to the same factory. They get cut into the same baton sizes. And they are delivered at the same temperature to this restaurant. He has temperature setting on his deep fat fryer is the same. He cannot change that setting. So everything has been kind of de-skilled, and I think we need to do to some extent that in our own factories, so that these people are then, they can come in and it's kind of a foolproof thing. So what we did with the upskilling is, I'll give you a very simple example of welding of a capacitor. It's a skilled job. Machines do it, but the correct setting of the machine is very important. And we do 4 million pieces a day. So if I get, and that's 8 million welds per day. If I get a few of these wrong, unfortunately there's no way of knowing them except when they're in the field, and that's too late. So how do we do this? Because obviously there are some guys who can understand this much better. We ask these guys to make simple videos. What should be the capacitor which is coming to get weld look like? What kind of capacitor should not be put on the welding machine at all? Just pictures. Each one is a 10 to 15 second video. At the end of it, there is a 5-second test. They will show you 4 capacitors, which of these are okay to weld, which are not okay to weld, as an example. If you pass this test, you go to the next one. So as a person is recruited and he wants to go into the welding station, he has 40 such videos coming from us, which on his own phone, he has to do it in his own time. So there is, and now imagine if I upload this. We've done it for first aid, for example, for how to do fire extinguishers. If all of us start putting these videos out there, we will be the largest skillipedia in the world for the electronic industry. So I'll be happy to, I dwelled a little longer than I should have, but there are many, many such examples.
So we're going to get Vinod invited for a session in ICT Academy. Just let me know. We'll book some time. Sure. Madam is asking. Can we have a couple of microphones, please? I think we can.
Thank you. While we all spoke about the need for PCB, we all agree that definitely PCB is the most wanted commodity today for electronics. And as Mr. Atul Lal was mentioning, yes, we need an anchor company. That is one portion of it. But if there are smaller companies who want to set up a PCB unit, and if there are, so we definitely need about 100, 200 companies coming together at the same time to set up PCB units, and only then we'll achieve economies of scale. So there is definitely going to be the Tatas or the Reliance in one side, and then we need the smaller companies also to grow up in the value chain. So my question is to Mr. Hansraj Verma as to whether Tamil Nadu can take up a PCB town or something like that, where all these 100 or 200 can be concentrated in the same place so that we can achieve economies of scale and we can beat the prices. And as we have seen Lighting City or something like that in China, so it can be a bit far off from the from the city, I mean the main cities, but then we definitely have the need for 100, 200 or even 1000 PCB fabricators in India. So we can have a separate town as such, which is called as the PCB town or a PCB park or something, which will meet all the needs.
Great question, ma'am. Just one clarification before I'm sure he'll answer. He already has some land allocated. So is PCB fabrication a red category industry or is it orange?
I am not sure.
Red?
Red.
Red? Okay, all right. So with that, sir, over to you.
See, on the same lines as Srimudur cluster, I am sure this is a very feasible concept. I'll pass on this input to the right authority in the government of Tamil Nadu. Look for a separate area with this red category classification.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it's a very great idea, ma'am. Thank you, sir, very much. Rajuji will factor that in. So,
hello, I'm Rajesh from Karnataka, Bangalore.
Yes, sir.
We are the manufacturer printed circuit boards from last 30-45 years.
Wow.
Okay, and I know in Chennai nobody PC manufactures. We are supplying all over India. And PCB making is not a joke. What do you think about PCB? It's not a joke. Very, very difficult and requirement of the investments, very big amount. And there are some 25 departments are there. And highly technical, the money is not a factor here. Technology is most important. Technical person is most important. Without technical and technology, and there are so many technologies involved in PC manufacturing. I came from bucket shop to today we are making a PC manufacturing and challenged it to China. My two sons had been last month, December in China for 125 days. Why? To know adapt the Chinese manufacturing how, and we have to challenge them to make their PCB equivalent to we also can manufacture. No, PCB manufacturing a small sectors is impossible. In China, they can make so easily the PC manufacturing, and they send a video on so many things. I explained on the manufacturing machinery is there. Those is not available. In Tamil Nadu, there is 3 industries in Hosur. They are in Chennai only, in Tamil Nadu only. But Karnataka wants some few, hardly some 20 people are available in India in PC manufacturing. But PCB is really not possible manufacturing. Your money, crores of rupees is not a valid here. And what platform you give for PC manufacturing? A small sectors, as the madam asked, some small people want to come manufacture the PCB. What platform do you get them? You will not give any piece of land to manufacture. Where you can? And then again starts a pollution, is highly pollution. How do you make all those things? Not possible at all. In PC manufacturing in India is highly difficult. In Chennai, nobody PC manufacture. I am supplying in Chennai. Maximum supplying Chennai, Coimbatore, and Noida, and all over India, Calcutta, almost India I am supplying. I am very small PC manufacturer, but I am very old and my quality is 100% very good. And we adopted many imported machines. No Indian machinery available.
Correct.
Everything imported. No Indian machinery is available.
Very good, sir. I think very happy to hear that it's possible. If you're doing it, it's possible. Very happy to hear that you're expanding, looking at opportunities in China. I think the challenges, sir, had outlined is very clear. I think maybe a small note, Atul, by, for the government on PCB would be of value. Very good, very good. Excellent. I think we are about out of time. So to sort of conclude this session, global value chains are very important. They are coming for various reasons. We have to be ready. I think, and I think there are some ideas which were explained today, some priorities, I think we have some tangible actions, at least in PCB. Maybe there is more. Okay? With that, all the best. Enjoy the rest of the next day and a half we have in Source India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for that wonderful session. I'd like to thank Mr. Josh for moderating the session, and I'd like to call on stage Mr. Shashi Kumar to please come forward and give away mementos to our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to all our panelists. Our guest of honor, Thiru Hansraj Verma, IASO. Our moderator for the session, Mr. Josh. And our panelists, Mr. Vinod Sharma, Mr. Gagan Bansal, and Mr. Amit Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep the applause coming in. Gentlemen, may I request all of you to please come together for a group photograph. Once again, thank you very much for that amazing session. Can we all hear it up with a big round of applause, everybody? Thank you. And with this, we shall break for lunch. And can I request all of you to please be back by 2:30. So in the meantime, you can take a look, visit the exhibition, and please have lunch and be back at 2:30, where after lunch we will have a session on India's dynamic state governments driving the ESDM vision. Also, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister of Industries, Government of Tamil Nadu, that is Dr. T.R.B. Raja, will be joining us in the afternoon at 2:30. So requesting all of you to please assemble back at the hall by 2:30. Thank you.